Well, hello guys, and as you can see, it's me and Asjad. So it's QualityShot and cricket4us 2.0 coming together once again, and you can probably see on the banner below as well. This is just going to be a very loose discussion talking about a lot of cricket going on. Pakistan's tour of England, the 100, Sri Lanka versus West Indies. Sorry, Sri Lanka versus India even, and West Indies versus Australia. Oh, why, Asjad? Where do you want to start?
Hello, first off. Thank you so much for anyone who is joining us. I know because we're putting this out on both channels. So thank you, everyone who's going to join us. And we will take questions and we'll go through like a genuine Q&A later on, and we'll just keep going back and forth. But genuinely, I think we should start with the Pakistan Tour of England, mainly because that's the big thing I want to talk about. And the big thing about that is Pakistan got hammered. Pakistan were absolutely destroyed, especially in the ODIs. Like something that I did not expect. I didn't expect Pakistan to go down and not perform at all, apart from that last game where they batted quite well, Babar Azam, Rizwan, etc. But even then, the bowling didn't stand up. And at the end of the day, Pakistan lost the ODI series 3-0 and won the first T20, which gave Pakistani fans a lot of promise, and then got hammered in the second T20. And then in the third one, they fought back. I can't really argue that. I think that was probably the most well-contested game out of the six I think Pakistan played against England. So those are my thoughts. What were your thoughts about this Pakistan's tour of England for them?
Yeah, I mean the ODI series was just an embarrassment. I think it's very difficult to disagree. It was embarrassing to say the least. It really was. It was just I almost struggled to watch some of it at times because we just struggled so much against, to be honest, a side that, let's be honest, all my subscribers kept on telling me it was a C-level side, and I kept on saying, no, it's only a B side, it's a second string side, and they've got really good side, and it's okay, it's not too bad. And next thing you know, we just kept on getting absolutely hammered, and I had to look at the team and say they're right, because then the T20 series came along, and only a couple of them retained their places. Saqib Mahmood, who I think obviously performed really well in the ODI series for England. In the T20s, he was bowled okay, but probably not as well as he would have liked. He was a bit unlucky at times. I found that edge of the bat a lot. Matt Parkinson was very good in the ODIs as well. Okay in the T20s, a bit underwhelming to a degree, but the T20s I enjoyed because it was a lot more competitive. I wouldn't say we got hammered in the T20s. I think we got beat 2-1. And look, could we have potentially won the series? Maybe, but I think we needed to have. I mean, I just need to talk about two things really. Babar Azam was 158 because then we can be really happy, and Pakistan's performance in the first T20 because we fielded unbelievably well, and not just that, the batsmen obviously stood up, and I think to be fair, the bowlers have not been horrific. I think really where, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it, and people will be saying is the biggest issue is the batting for Pakistan, and it's the middle order, and really we talk about this all the time, don't we?
Yeah, that middle order is really disappointing. In T20 specifically, when you have Babar Azam, Rizwan at the top of the order, one of them at least fires in most games, which is really useful for Pakistan. But then that middle order, 3 down till 6, it's like, oh, let's put Suhaib Maqsood at 3. Let's put Fakhar Zaman at 5. Why are you putting Fakhar Zaman at 5? And then, okay, let's promote Shadab Khan. No, now let's promote Ahmad Naseem. Like, there's no clear vision.
My brother was so frustrated, by the way. I'm not joking. Like, he was fuming. He was like, why is Fakhar Zaman batting at 5? And I was like, it's okay. Like, what can you do? But I can see what he was saying, because I think actually someone made a good point. I don't know if it was you or someone. I think it was someone else actually made a good point that if we lose a wicket within the first 5 overs, you send in Fakhar Zaman, because he won't be that guy who comes in and just goes up from ball 1, but he will build up to that as he does in ODIs. But if you lose a wicket past then, so you're looking at potentially past that 5 over mark, then you can send in Suhaib Maqsood because he will score quickly, and that's fine. You need it at that stage in the T20. So I think Pakistan need to be flexible in their approach to T20 cricket, because I don't feel like we're a bad T20 side. I actually feel like we're quite a good side, but we need to really, I think, piece it together well. I think, and that's the biggest thing for me. Like Pakistan, they need to be very cohesive and also just be flexible. Don't be so stringent or like just very rigid. Even in your approach to the batting lineup, like change it up. Like that's the way forward.
Yeah, I think there's a really good comment here by Shay.
Mm.
Do you think Pakistan's batting lineup is more dependent on Rizwan and Babar Azam? It's very dependent on both of them right now, especially not even just if you consider T20s or ODIs, even in Test cricket. Pakistan, yes, a bit of the onus has gone on to Fawad Alam since coming back, but Rizwan and Babar are still considered the best batsman Pakistan has at the moment, right? And Pakistan keeps thinking, okay, if one of them's firing, that's all good. But days where both of them don't fire, you see that middle order crumble. Like Mohammad Hafiz's form since the end of 2020, I don't know what happened. I don't know what's happened, but it's like he's gone back to 2017 Hafiz rather than going to the 2020 Hafiz. That's the way I've seen it. And you mentioned the bowling wasn't terrible. I thought the bowling was mediocre at best. Like that's my take on it. It was a 5 out of 10 bowling performance in the series. Had some very good performances. Hassan Ali, Shaheen with some good spells here and there. Shadab Khan,
he probably well.
He's done well. Hafiz in that final T20 with the 3 for 28. So some decent performances, but overall as a bowling unit, I thought England just outshone Pakistan. If we take Babar Azam, Rizwan out of it, I think the middle order definitely needs some work. Is there anyone you think that can fit into that middle order? Saud Shakil played in the ODIs, scored a very well-made 50, but even the way that he plays, it's like his genuine position is number 4. It just doesn't make sense. Pakistan having Saud Shakil batting at 5 when that's where other teams play players like Ben Stokes or Rishabh Pant or, not Henry Nichols, Ross Taylor as an example, right? These teams put one of their best batsmen at number 5, and Pakistan have put someone who's new and say, oh no, you take that number 5 spot. The pressure would be absolutely astronomical. And I think Pakistan just needs to look at that area between 3 and 6 and just decide what type of order they need, because it's not working. It's not working, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the issue is I think we need to really differentiate between the ODI and T20 side, like other teams do.
Let's start with ODI. I know what you're saying. Yeah, but let's talk about ODIs first, and then I'll let you go on. Yeah.
So I think with ODIs, it's a little bit more difficult because I feel like you need to have more strength and depth because you just have more overs. So really, you need to have, you need to have batting down to 8 really at least, and 9 if you can. I mean, Hassan Ali at 9 is where I'm looking at, and then you're looking from 8 upwards. So Fahim Ashraf maybe at 8, and then. Look, I do think, for example, if we had Imad Wasim in the ODI squad, it would have made a difference. Because yes, he can hit, yes, and T20 is fine, but his best format for batting is actually ODIs. Because we forget he can bat. Like if in the World Cups, the Champions Trophy, like he can bat. I'm not saying he should be batting any higher than 7 or 6 in an ODI, but like he can bat. Shadab Khan as well, like he did pretty well. In the T20s, which is surprising, but he batted. There's one knock in there that was okay, but in the ODIs as well, he got a couple of 20s and 30s. Fine. Is he really? Should he be at 6? Probably not. But if he continues to kind of develop at that rate, then I don't hate it. But then the issue with that is that we're Pakistan, we're not England, so we can't rely on then the top 5 to get runs, and that's the issue. So we're kind of in this in-between phase where we want to make sure that people are developing. Like, for example, Azam Khan, they brought him in, but we said it was too early. And I think the reason why it's too early is not just because of his development, but it's also because we're Pakistan. We're not England, where we can afford to just chuck someone in there and then everyone else will play around him, and then the spotlight's not on him. The spotlight is definitely on him because he came in at times where we had to basically just survive. And it was, okay, you know what, go out there and try and basically just be a superstar. So for us, like Saud Shakil was okay. Like I thought the 50, as you said, was good, but I don't see him as someone who's going to be able to score quickly. So I don't see him on the T20 side. And the ODI side, maybe. But then I guess who does he come in for? They are missing Haris Sahel. He obviously got injured just before. That is a big miss because the left-hander as well in the middle order. It does make a difference having that contrast. So look at Mohamed Rizwan as well. His form in ODIs is weird because he's so good in T20s.
Yeah,
he's so good in T20s and Test matches, but ODIs, which is the in-between one, he just can't quite seem to, as you say, like find that in-between. Which, I've said this, and I don't know what people think, but I feel like ODIs is maybe the hardest format now to actually excel in because you need to have a bit of both now.
Yeah,
and you need to, you need to form an innings that has Test cricket aspects and also T20 cricket aspects if you're going to bat long enough. So I think Rizwan struggles with that a little bit to find the kind of middle ground. So that does hurt us a little bit because then we're relying heavily on Babar Azam, Fakhar Zaman, and then Imam al-Haq as well. So that top three is not bad. Like, let's be honest, that top three is probably the best we can hope for. I'm not going to lie, in ODI cricket. They average, they all average over 45.
Yeah, so Fakhar Zaman with 48, 49, Imam al-Haq with 50, Babar Azam with 56. So if you look at those averages, you're thinking, oh, the top three are amazing. But you have to consider the fact who Imam al-Haq and Fakhar Zaman have usually scored their runs against. But let's not talk about the teams they've played against. But in general, if you look at those stats, you think, okay, the top three solid, but it's everyone after that, as you correctly mentioned, and that's where Pakistan kind of needs to figure stuff out. There's a comment by Ritu, I think it's Smayan. He's actually said, can Pakistan try Haider Ali in the middle order in ODIs rather than someone like Saud Shakil? What are your thoughts around that?
Oh, no, I think he's saying, and why not Saud Shakil at number 3? But that's right. But if Saud Shakil is at number 3, the issue with that is
where's Babar
Azam at? Yeah. So I guess if he's talking about T20s, maybe potentially as well, then. But Saud Shakil, I think, bats too slowly for T20s. I don't know if I'm pretty sure from what I've seen. Haider Ali, Haider Ali is a very talented youngster, but the issue that I have is that I don't want us to do to Azam Khan what we've done to Haider Ali, which is then we put him in there really quickly, scored runs, and then we just said, keep going. We can see you've got technical deficiencies, but just keep going. Don't worry, we'll shut you up and down the order as well. 3 to 5 to 6, just keep going. Don't worry, you'll sort it out. And then next thing you know, he completely loses form, confidence, and the PSL, he was really poor. It was hard to watch at times because we know how talented he is. So I just think looking at that, it's not for me. Babar opens with his one and Fakhar gets dropped. Oh, so he's talking about... Well, hold on. What's this for?
T20? I think he's talking about T20s.
T20. And Fakhar Zaman gets dropped. Okay, so I think what he's saying is that if it's T20s, Babar Azam Rizwan, then you don't have Sahel Maqsood at 3, you have Saud Shakil instead. Fakhar Zaman drops out, maybe you have Sahel Maqsood at 5, which is fine. I actually like Fakhar Zaman at 3. I do. I don't think he's a bad option.
Yeah.
I would love to see Babar Azam at 3, but I think the issue that we keep on going back to is that it's like the Butler thing. You want your best player to face the most amount of balls, fine, and then Babar Azam keeps on scoring runs. So does Josh Butler. I can't say that they shouldn't be opening the bat, and it's quite hard to go against it. But I guess in an ideal scenario, if we weren't Pakistan, I would say, can we have someone else with Rizwan at the top who's a hitter, like a Shajil Khan, I say Fakhar Zaman, but. He takes a little bit of time even this is so left field, it'll never happen, but Sahel Maqsood just hits from ball 1, right, pretty much, right, as in that type of player, but I don't think we've got the capacity really as a team to do it, unfortunately.
It's sad, but that's the harsh truth, isn't it? Pakistan has to focus on the players they've got now and try and figure out a way of playing with those specific individuals. Let me just touch a little bit on England, because there's a really good comment here by Shay. Is Milan's form a concern for England? Can Joe Root make it to the T20 squad? So I know we've been discussing Dawud Milan potentially getting dropped from the T20 side, which I don't see happening, but you said it could be a possibility if he keeps performing the way that he is. So first off, England performed really well. They won both series. There were some deficiencies, but either way, it wasn't England's best team in the T20s or their best team in the ODIs. They had some very good teams. It wasn't the best that England would have produced if everyone was available. So in terms of Milan, do you see Milan being dropped? Do you see Milan still remaining in the English setup? Because personally, he's world number one right now. Don't see him being dropped from that number one status, and it'll be really harsh someone who is at that number one spot to be dropped in the England side. Yes, the rankings are not rigged, but you know what I mean. Like, you don't need to take them that seriously. But at the same time, he's had some brilliant performances. And if the World Cup's in the UAE, there's going to be spin. He struggles against spin. Does it make sense to bring in someone like Joe Root back into the side?
I can't see Joe Root being in the side. If I'm being honest with you, I just feel like they are not looking at that at all. I think he's just focused on the Ashes. Milan, though, is his form of concern. Like 100%. Because, as you said, he's a number one T20 batsman. I was one of the first people to say, how dare they say they should get dropped when England were playing India, because at that time, he hadn't shown anything that made you think he should get dropped. His form hadn't deteriorated at all. Like, he was scoring runs galore. He was a number one T20 batsman by quite a long stretch from ranking points as well. But now if you look at the updated ranking, I think he's only 8 points ahead of Bob Razem. He's not very far ahead.
Wow.
So, with the updated rankings as well, like, he could easily drop out of it in the next few months, depending on what T20s are going on. Personally, I think he needs to have a big 100. I know it sounds weird, but I know we're going to talk about the 100 as well. But look, realistically, I think Dawid Malan is someone who seems to play very well in like hot, bouncy conditions, like your Australia, like your New Zealands, your South Africas, and that's why he performs so well. And it's funny, like, people were saying he should be looked at for the Ashes because he's not just a T20 player; he's an all-format player, right? Really, as in he's got the ability to. I think the biggest issue that he has is spin. And I know that I've heard some other channels saying that his ability against spin in terms of stats wise is actually pretty good, but I just don't see it in really spin conducive conditions. He struggles in them. And I think that's a concern going into UAE. The concern is Dawid Malan against, for example, like I said we have to bowl Hafiz in that last T20. I said, why have we not bowled him in the other two? Because they've got so many left-handers in there. They've got Morgan, they've got Moeen Ali, they've got Dawid Malan, they've got David Willey, for example. So that's 4, right? Potentially they would have Sam Curran in there, etc., etc. So I think, like, you have to use your off spinner, right, when you've got lefties in there. And we didn't do it until the last one, which it did pay off. Obviously, we didn't win the game, but he bowled really well. So Milan struggled a lot. What was it? 31 or 33 balls and then 2 single-digit scores. So he's in a really poor run of form. If he has an amazing 100, then it will just be like, oh, it was just a little blip. If he doesn't, considering this is a domestic competition, now, yes, there are international players in there, but a lot of the players from Australia, from Pakistan, they dropped out because of the rescheduling and because of the bubbles, and they pulled out. So it's not as strong as it would have been before. So he should do well in this format. If he doesn't, then England will look at it and they will say, hold on. Now, the player probably to come in at 3 potentially, or to replace him, is Ben Stokes. Now, the funny thing about this is that Ben Stokes' stats are poor in T20 internationals.
They're horrible for a guy with the talent he has.
So, and it's funny, like, I was listening to another channel and they were saying that England use stats when they want, basically. They're selective. So, if to get someone in the team, they'll look past it. They'll just say, oh, but he's Ben Stokes. Get in the team, right? But anyone else, like, for example, Bairstow, I think he's fantastic as an opener. But they'll say, oh, but, he's such a good player of spin. So he should be at 4 because he can play the spinners, right? So it's just people use stats kind of when they want selectively. Honestly, I think what I would like to see, and it's harsh on Dawid Malan, but what I'd like to see is they drop Dawid Malan, which I think will happen. I mean, realistically, Stokes is definitely going to come in. I just think he shouldn't be at 3. I think they should have Roy and Butler and Bairstow in any order in that top 3. And then Stokes you can have wherever.
Yeah, there's an interesting comment here by Jonathan Birkinshaw. Thank you so much for joining, by the way. As an England fan, I want Stokes as an aggressive option or Root as an anchor option, batting 3 at the T20 World Cup, not Dawid Malan. Now, you mentioned some really good points about Dawid Malan, and I think Ritu mentioned here as well that, Root can ball a bit of spin.
Yeah.
Root's probably a better option against spin as well. There was a discussion with Fox Cricket where Michael Atherton was speaking to Mark Waugh, and he said Dawid Malan's probably the only person England are looking at for the Ashes to come into the Test side. So if Dawid Malan does get dropped in the T20s, considering England's Test side isn't as set in stone as, teams like India, New Zealand, etc., they might actually look at Dawid Malan, because the last time they toured Australia, Malan played. I think he scored
played really well
in Perth, didn't he? Right. So maybe that is an option for Test cricket, and that's why he might actually be sidelined in the T20s, which is not a bad shout. There's a question from Tabin Khan. Azhar, do you think the PCB will sack? I think they'll sack Misbah if Pakistan get hammered in West Indies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not sacking Misbah till after the T20 World Cup, because you need a scapegoat. You always need a scapegoat, and that's the scapegoat. Say, oh, it's all Misbah's fault. Take him out, bring someone new in, and that's exactly what's going to happen if Pakistan get absolutely hammered in
I wouldn't be surprised if just before the T20 World Cup, like he gets sacked. And I think it depends. We should really wait, but in a very typical Pakistani fashion, we may just sack him before and say, oh, we'll refresh it and we'll perform so well in the T20 World Cup. But let's see. I mean, look, there's a lot of comments talking about Root. Look, I think ideally, if it wasn't a jam-packed Test schedule, they would look at him, but I just don't see him coming to the side. I think with the options they've got in T20 cricket now, like Livingston, for example, just
Livingston's amazing. Oh my god,
mate! The sixes he hit, the big. I mean, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I was a bit salty about the 100 because he hit quite he got dropped as well on like 20 odd, and then I think 16, and I was like, come on, man, Hasnain. And then after that, there were a couple of like inside edges and stuff, and I was like, oh. But you know what? Look, some of the striking was just, you cannot say anything against it except that's just incredible hitting from a very talented, it looks, a hitter that they've found. And I say they've found, but I've seen him for a few years for Lancashire, and he's a good player. His bowling is filthy, though. Like, the leg spin, off spin is just a very village thing to do. I'm not going to lie to you. It's just, I watch it and I just cringe. And he's not an option for me bowling-wise, but they may use him potentially in the UAE for like an over or two to fill in gaps. But if they've got Moin Ali, Adil Rashid, and whoever else, like Parkinson, they won't. Yeah, they won't need him. But batting wise, right, he just slots in potentially. And then you've got Stokes, and then you've got Bairstow, then you've got Butler, then you've got Roy, right? Sam Curran potentially. You've got Jofra Archer will come in, who hit towards the end anyway. Moin Ali. So, like, where does Root fit in there? Do England need an anchor, is the question, in a T20? Because there's now a argument to be had that England don't actually need a Milan type player. That's the issue that's coming. Do England need a Milan type player, or do they have enough batting and strength and depth where they can bat realistically almost down to 11? Rashid can bat, Jordan can bat, like David Willey, who's bat, they can all bat, right? Jofra Archer can bat. These guys can all bat. Like in a T20, for example, you've got a couple of overs. Would I be surprised if they hit a couple of sixes in those couple of overs? Not at all. So I don't know whether they actually need it.
I think that comment's really well placed on what you're talking about. You need crucial sixes at crucial points to get them over the line. But I think
it's harsh, though. That's harsh.
Yeah, he bowled brilliantly, though. The first couple of 3 overs, he bowled really well. Jonathan Birkinshaw's comment, I'm going to take this and then we'll talk about the 100. Milan scored a Test 100 at the WACA. You have to be a good player to do that, but he did have a problem against Seaman Swing. Right, okay. So this is the thing. I think Milan will be considered in Tests. He might actually be dropped eventually if England realize, as you mentioned, the 100, and we're going to get onto the 100. If Milan's 100 isn't the greatest, if the practice games that England have in the T20s in different conditions, especially outside the UK, if Milan flops, then they'll have to look at someone else. The anchor point, I think Ritu's kind of hit the nail on the head. They do need an anchor because I've seen England collapse only twice out of, 20, 25 games, where if England hasn't got an anchor, they do have the possibility that they will collapse. But the way England plays is like unlikely, but it is a possibility, if you know what I mean. So an anchor would be a great choice. Maybe someone like Stokes, maybe someone like Morgan can play an anchor role of sorts.
This is harsh, but I reckon Butler does that role now. And that sounds weird. But the reason why I say that, and you'll probably think, what? Fazan's saying, but since he's moved to the top of the order, if you see him, his first 20, 30 runs are not normally very quick. They're not quick at all. They're like, he's going at a 120, 130 strike rate max. And then he explodes. And that's why I kept on saying, like, I'd like to see him lower down, because he just comes in and he'll hit from ball one. But what's happened is that he does that, and then he explodes from there, and he tries to give them a platform. His mentality in T20 cricket is slightly tweaked since opening the batting, and it's a little more cautious. It's still very, very good. He'll still play shots, but he's more selective with them, because he's got more value, I think, on his wicket, and he knows that he does opening the batting. So I feel like he could be that. That's the only thing. Jonathan's saying Stokes has shown before that if the situation requires, he can play the anchor role as well, because he's such a versatile and adaptable cricketer. Yeah, he can 100%. Then the question is, where does he play? So then Jonathan, I guess, is insinuating he should be at 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually disagree with that point.
But isn't it so harsh though? Like, his record is so poor, and just because your name is Ben Stokes against, I love Ben Stokes as a cricketer, unbelievable. But in a T20, like, for example, would I rather have Bairstow or Stokes at 3? I'd rather have Bairstow. Like, in a T20, I just know that he's going to be more consistent. Stokes will come up, I think, with a 1 in like 5 T20s where he'll blast potentially like 100, and it will be so good. But I just don't see him having that consistency in the side. And I don't know. There's something about him in T20 internationals, and he just hasn't quite clicked. But maybe it will. Maybe batting at 3 will help him click. I don't know.
See, these are interesting points, and thankfully we don't have to make these decisions, Fazan. We just have to talk about them and hope that England chooses the right choice in terms of picking their side for the T20 World Cup. Talking about we mentioned the 100 a couple of times. Let's talk about the 100. I think you've watched it a bit more than I have. However, my team, the Oval Invincibles, have won their first 2 games, so I'm quite excited about that.
Men and women,
yeah, men and women both. Birmingham Phoenix are playing their game at the moment against the London Spirit. New format, thoughts so far?
My thoughts are the format is pretty simple to follow. But my other thought is, I think we were talking about it in our cricket group, is the graphics are just bizarre. Like, it just takes up too much of the screen, and I'm like, where am I supposed to look? And then it's just flashing around everywhere, and they've got the side panels, and I'm like, they're trying to make it look very trendy, and that's fine, but it looks a bit tacky to a degree. Like, the actual cricket on show is okay, like pretty high quality. I get the formats. Obviously, like, the biggest change is that it's only 5 ball overs, although they don't actually say overs, but it's 5 balls per bowler. That's the other thing, which is a bit weird, by the way, because they say 5 balls, but what is it per bowler? But I don't think they specifically say overs. So
they're trying not to say overs.
Yeah, but I'm like, how do you know when that bowler is done? Do you know what I mean? As in after 5 balls. So it's like, okay, after 5 balls you're done. But I'm just like, so what's the end of
the umpire says 5 ball. I think the umpires say 5 balls or something, or worse than that.
This is just ridiculous. Right. But anyway, then after the 5 balls, obviously the captain, if the bowler's bowling well, they can say you can bowl 10, right? You can bowl 10 in a row, basically, which is fantastic. But the other thing is that because of that, they switch every 2 overs. They switch ends every 2 overs, which is another interesting thing. I guess that tries to make it quicker as well. And I guess it'll be weird if you bowled 5 balls from one end and 5 balls from the other end, because it's just like, because there is a difference there.
You might have to, Fazad. I've seen this happen. It was ball 75, if you want to call it that, right? So there were 75 balls. They bowled 5 balls. It was 80, and then they bowled 5 more. So they went to 85. And I was like, oh, that's just unlucky.
Then that's the flaw, right? So that's actually a flaw in the rules. Where that's interesting. I wonder if they'll tweak that after. But yeah, bowling 10 balls is a game changer, because imagine like Rashid Khan, right? I can't wait for him to bowl 10 balls in a row.
Do you know what he said? He actually said that gives me 3 hat tricks in potentially. I could get 3 hat tricks.
That's ridiculous.
I love it.
But it's interesting though, right? Because I think you're looking at it, and I think yesterday. The other thing is, like, what's a good score for the 100? What's a good score? Because it's 20 balls less, right? So you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, technically, that's 3 overs left, let's just say. So that's 17 overs. So what you probably want to go at, an 8 run rate at least.
Yeah.
So then, you're looking at, Yeah, God, I can't even do my maths.
Fazan,
Yeah, you're looking at 136. So which is 140, yeah. So that's fine.
Everyone is looking at the 100 and trying to figure out what terminologies to use. They could use runs per over, but I saw on the Crick Info that it said runs per ball. So the runs per ball were 1.486 or something like that. I was like, okay, so just times it by 6, so it's 8.4, but it's not 20 overs, it's 100 balls. So it's 16.4. Like literally that's what my brain was doing. But I just realized there's no need to do that. Everything's on the screen.
Yeah.
It's meant to be easier, and I've seen people understand cricket. They understand the 100 much better than they understood a T20 game, which is shocking to me because it's pretty much the same thing with differences that we would find annoying. But people who don't watch cricket, they're like,
that's the thing. That's the thing. It basically spells it out for them, right? That's the thing. That's why. So I think it says how many runs are left, how many balls are left, right? So it's telling you, it's giving you the equation on the. It's basically it's dumbing it down for you, really. But the biggest issue I have is, and it's interesting. Like they had it was actually on the Great Cricketer. They did an interview with a guy from the Guardian, and he was saying that the biggest issue that he has with this format. There's two issues. The first issue is that this overlaps with the One Day Cup.
Yeah.
So the County One Day Cup, right? So they've lost all their players. And that means going forward, a lot of these players will not be playing any one-day cricket.
Yeah.
Domestically. Is that not ridiculous? So then England are the holders in one-day cricket, but they're not going to be playing any one-day cricket. So they'll just be playing T20 Blast, and then they'll roll into the 100, and they'll come out of that and then continue the red ball stuff. So I'm just like, so is ODI cricket becoming dead or something? Like there's two extremes basically that they're trying to look at. The other thing is then I guess is because it's running kind of parallel to the T20 Blast is if people suddenly get into cricket because of the 100, how are they then going to get into other forms of cricket? Because it's completely different.
That's the idea. But that's the idea. They're not going to. They just want them to watch 100.
But I thought part of it was we'll get people into cricket, but the 100 only happens in a small window once every year. So, for example, the only way that it really works is if, for example, the IPL, PSL, they say, "Oh, that format looks cool, we'll adopt it." Then all the franchises, I know, I'm not saying they will, but I'm just saying that if they did, right, that's the only way. Because at the moment, it's hard, right? Because you look at it and you just say, well, I think it's a fun format. I don't mind it. I'm just thinking the long-term plan, though. Where does it put cricket? Because it's another format. Can people take that on board and say, "Oh, I want to go watch Test cricket"? I don't think so, because you have to then explain the rules to them again. So it's not like it's really getting them into it.
Yeah.
The other formats, if that makes sense. So unless the ECB is saying we want to revolutionize cricket and the 100 is going to be one of the biggest formats, and if they want it to replace T20 cricket, then maybe, I guess. Or we've got Shay is very, very he's very adamant about the 100. I think he loves it.
Let me just get it here. There we go. That's what I was looking for. George Dobell and Telegraph are spreading negativity. Yeah, I haven't really read much, but the thing is, right?
So that's the guy who did the interview.
With the Crick Info guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
George Dobell. Yeah. So the point is, right? If you look at a purist, if you ask them in 1970 whatever, should there be a one-day cricket, they would say no.
Yeah.
If you ask someone in 2004, do you want to play T20? No. What is this T20 cricket?
Yeah.
It's a bad version of one day. So there's always negativity. But
agreed.
Let's see how it happens. Like this point, I think is the most valid out of all of them.
Agreed,
if the viewers love the 100, then that's all that matters, because then the ECB will continue it, and there might be 100 leagues going on around the world rather than the T20 leagues, if you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And the formats change completely, and maybe new players, people start watching it. My thought is, yes, the first ever 100 game was almost 4 million people were watching at the same time, but it's not going to bring new fans to cricket. It's going to bring new fans to the 100 once a year for a month and a half, or however long it is. And that's what happens with the T20 Blast, honestly. Fazan, I don't know if you noticed, but around, at least up north, it's like, oh, the T20 Blast is happening. Oh, let's go out. Let's go.
You know why though? That's because they do the T20 Blast after work. So then people go. It's like a night out after work,
Exactly.
and they go out for drinks and stuff, and that's what it is. And half the time they're not even watching the cricket. It's just like an excuse to be like, oh, I'm here. We're in like a crowd, and they don't even know what the score is. They're just kind of like chatting and having a good time. That's fine. And some of them will pick it up, but I guess the difference with the 100 is that they're trying to make it family friendly, which is interesting. So it's trying to be more child friendly. So it'll be interesting to see how many kids pick it up and actually enjoy it. There's a few funny comments. Turning Point says the graphics are basically not very good, rubbish. And Abdullah says the graphics makes watching a match like a hack stream on YouTube with a lot of pop-up ads, which is hilarious.
That's what I was thinking when I saw it for the first time.
It's like when you go on Sky Sports, actually, isn't it? When you go on their website and you've got these pop-up like ads coming up, and you're like no, stop it, and then it says, why don't you like this ad? It's almost like that. You're going through it, and I'm watching.
I don't know if you noticed, Sky Sports Cricket is now called Sky 100. Have you seen? It's called Sky 100.
Oh, they changed it just for the 100.
They changed the name of the channel for this tournament. Right?
They're really invested.
They're very invested in this. Let's talk about that's everything. At least I wanted to talk about the 100. The game right now is Birmingham Phoenix London Spirit, as you said. It's going on at the moment. The men's game will start in about a couple of hours time.
It's 6, I think, or 6:30, isn't it?
6:30, yeah. So anything else you want to add about the 100 before we go on?
I mean, lastly, obviously, Oval Invincibles won yesterday, the men's, and Billings batted really well. He's the captain, 49 off 30. I'm actually supporting Birmingham Phoenix just because Moeen Ali's the captain, and I love Moeen Ali. But also because I've interviewed 2 of the players, Daniel Bell-Drummond and Benny Howe. So hopefully they play. Daniel Bell-Drummond, if he does, he'll open the batting, I'm assuming. Benny Howe's like a finisher, and then he bowls like 10 different variations of slow balls. So he'll be cool to watch if he does play as well. And send them some messages. Probably will never reply. No, they have replied. They've said thank you. But they're nice guys. Tom Curran as well got some runs, which is
shocking.
I mean, Sam Curran opening the batting, we said about obviously the IPL, but like they have Will Jackson there, who's actually a gun T20 player. And Laurie Evans can bat as well.
Laurie Evans is a genuine opener or a top order batsman. I don't know why he's batting 7 or whatever. I think they're just trying to experiment. And again, we'll see a lot of strategies and tactics come out at the end of the 100 to say, oh, this is what works in the 100. This is what works in T20. This works for different formats. Right. Fantastic. Thank you, by the way.
Sorry, lastly though, how well did Narayan bowl? Because I saw someone mention that.
Oh yes, let me find that comment.
And 20 balls for 22 runs. Oh, I can't get used to this balls. But anyway, so 22 runs and 20 balls, which is just over a runner ball and 1 wicket. I mean, everyone else bowled pretty well, to be fair. Sakir Mahmood only bowled 1 over. Bizarre. The injured?
No, not injury, because they realized that, they didn't need him. Honestly, they didn't need him.
They just bowled the slower and variation bowlers.
Yeah. Because Sakir Mahmood now, yes, he has variation, but we saw even in the T20s, he wasn't the pick of the bowlers for England, right? In ODIs, yes, he was, but in the T20s, he wasn't. So maybe that kind of was on the mind for Sam Billings, because technically Jason Roy's the captain, isn't he? But Sam Billings was the captain in the second innings.
I think Jason Roy is, yeah. Let's have a look.
Sam Billings took over the captaincy in the second inning.
It says he's the captain in the lineup.
Right. I heard this in commentary, so maybe I'm completely out.
No, you might be right. Obviously, Josh Butler, our mate, didn't do really well. He got 8 off 10, but that's a. I don't want to go into that. That's a rabbit hole.
All right. Okay, Fazan. So let's talk about the other 2 big series that are happening at the moment. There is more cricket, but these are the 2 that we're going to concentrate about. We're going to talk about the West Indies versus Australia T20 series, which, yes, West Indies absolutely battered Australia 4-1, yes. But at the same time, we also have to talk about the ODI, which the first ODI, Australia basically scored double the runs West Indies did and bowled them out for like 120. The second one, unfortunately, was postponed due to some people being tested positive. So what are your thoughts on that?
First of all, hopefully everyone's okay, because that's a shocker, isn't it? They're just about to play and then someone tested positive. So I'm hoping that they can, I'm hoping that they, I guess resolve and they can continue the tour. But so far it's been, it's not been surprised. I haven't been that surprised, I have to be honest. The reason why I say that is because West Indies are very, very underrated in T20s. And the reason why I don't want to talk about the ODIs too much is because honestly,
There's
it
been
doesn't
one.
really mean much. Well,
Yeah.
it's been one, but also it doesn't mean much, does it? Like going forward towards the T20 World Cup, I know there's World Super League points, whatever, that's fine, but like realistically, like when you look at it, Tony Points Cricket4us has better graphics, hilarious. West Indies,
Thank you so much.
West Indies, though, there's a T20 side. Look, people forget that they're reigning champions. They're reigning champions, right, in T20s. Mr. Champion Dwayne Bravo is still playing. And we've got so many others, right? We've got, I mean, Hayden Walsh Jr., which I'm just going to call him out. And not just because I've interviewed him, but go and check it out but if you haven't already. But no, genuinely, really nice guy. But that's not why I'm mentioning him. He's just bowled so well. And I remember I did the interview with him and he said to me, like, I don't want to be someone who's in the squad for the World Cup. And then not be an integral part. Like if I'm going to be in the squad, basically, I want to be a pivotal part of it and play a big role. And if he keeps on bowling like the way he did in this series, he will be. Obviously, he's only played a few matches before for West Indies before the series, kind of up and down. And then this series, it just clicked. And I've seen him on Instagram constantly, like really honing his craft. He's got different variations. He's very quick through the air, a little bit more like a Rashid Khan, basically. But he's got very, very good variations. In fact, actually, he discussed some of them in the interview. Like, he actually explained to me his variations. So I probably shouldn't, like, keep out there for his, adversaries or opponents because they might figure out. I don't think they will. But he was talking to me about it, and I was like, oh, cool. I definitely will not be trying that in the nets because it's way too skilled for me. But he bowled really well. Obviously, him and Mitchell Stark both got 5 wickets, but Hayden Walsh got 12 wickets even, in the T20s, and also got a 5 in the ODI. So look, his confidence is sky high, and that's a big, big plus because the one thing they were missing is a spinner, and Narayan obviously is an option because he's been such a good bowler for so many years. But Hayden Walsh Jr. is new. He's done well in the CPL. MVP I think in 2019, and now he is starting to come into his own as well. So that's a big, big plus for them. Australia just look like a side that they don't know how to play T20 cricket. They look like, but you know what is funny? I'm going to quote the great cricketer. It's so funny that what they said. They literally said that Australia are a side where they don't know which format they're concentrating on. You know, like England, you can say their test side's not that great because they're concentrating on white ball because they won the World Cup, right? They're the number 1 T20 side. Pakistan, right? You can say, well, okay, maybe they don't have a particularly good test side or ODI side, but T20s we are pretty good, right? We're good. We're pretty good. All other teams, India, for example, good in all formats. Australia, they were saying, well, ODI cricket we're not very good. Test cricket we're not very good recently, and T20 cricket we don't know how to play it properly. So they're like, so what are we concentrating on? And I think Australia are in this predicament at the moment where unfortunately they just don't have, I think, the infrastructure and the what's the word? I think the importance on T20 cricket. And I think going into the World Cup, I do not see them qualifying out of those groups. I genuinely do not.
I'll tell you something which, is going to sound really bad. And yes, Australia, great team in the past and everything. Yeah. But Australia think they're better than they are. I think that's what
they're not very good now. They're not. New Zealand are way above them.
Yeah.
New Zealand are way above them. And any Australian fan that thinks that Australia are above New Zealand are in basically in the clouds. Their heads in the clouds because New Zealand are up here. Genuinely, New Zealand are out down here. New Zealand. I'll sum it up. Australia at the moment are almost on par with Pakistan. That's how bad they're playing at the moment.
Oh, come on. They're not that bad at the moment, all right? Because the thing is...
Benny's in the chat. They're almost as bad as Sri Lanka.
I can't believe you just said that. This does not represent the views of Cricket4us 2.0 whatsoever. Goodness me, Fazad. I think Australia is just struggling with T20 cricket. Yes, the India series was one of the best test series I've seen in quite some time. But the point is, they showed some sort of fight there. They had a few injuries. They were kind of mixing players up. But I think T20 is where Australia is definitely struggling. And it'll be very, very good from their perspective to get to some sort of knockout match in the World Cup. But yeah, it seems unlikely considering how West Indies kind of wiped the floor with Australia in the T20s. ODI, I think ODI is probably Australia's best format. But unfortunately, no one cares about ODIs right now. Yes, we've got the Super League, as you correctly mentioned. But because it's in 2 years, people are like, yeah, who cares? Who cares?
Genuinely, who cares? Yeah. No, I agree. And like, it's crazy because you look at the groups and they probably got a slightly easier group than Group B. Yeah. Don't get me started on that because Pakistan have got a horrific group with two of the favorites in my eyes.
Unfortunately, we don't have time to do that. We just have time. We only have time to discuss the Sri Lanka India series very quickly. Which
I feel like I've triggered Asjad, so he doesn't want to talk about the groups because he knows that Pakistan are not going to make it past. You know, it's so funny. I listened to the cricket podcast, and they were like, I think the format and the T20, like I really like. Look, we've had them both on, right? Really nice guys. But they said, you know, Pakistan have got a pretty good side, and they said, you know, we think they're like, I think the format of the T20 World Cup might suit Pakistan. I was like, I really respect you guys, but that's completely wrong because in a Super 12 tournament, it rewards teams that are consistent, and Pakistan are not consistent. The only way that we get out of that group is if they say it's the top four, you know, that go through, and then we play like knockout stages, basically, or they split us into more groups, basically, and then we go through like that. Like this, we have absolutely zero chance, and I would be surprised, very surprised, if we don't see India, New Zealand from that group, and West Indies, England. If South Africa maybe have a chance in that group if West Indies don't turn up, but genuinely, like, I just can't see any other way.
Wow. All right. I'm dark horse Afghanistan to win the World Cup. All right.
Beat New Zealand, India, Pakistan.
Everybody. Those would be upsets, but I think Afghanistan right now are absolutely brilliant.
They're good side, though. Very, very good.
They're a really good side, solid side. Right. Sri Lanka, India. Their third ODI is happening at the moment. India won the first two. First one very convincingly, second one not so convincingly. But Deepak Chahar did come back and score a very well-made 69. They had a lot of their backup bowlers actually performing quite well. Kuldeep Yadav, Yuzvendra Chahal, Deepak Chahar, as I already mentioned. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, yes, he's not a backup bowler, but he hasn't played international cricket very often over the past couple of years. So he's also performing well. They brought in Navdeep Saini, Rahul Chahar, Chetan Sakaria for the third ODI. But India now, I think India's realized that, we've tested out everyone. Let's just take this third ODI as everyone who hasn't played, let them play apart from Devdutt Padikkal. Let them play. Let them kind of dip their toes in the water and see how they go. What are your thoughts on that particular series going on? And do you think this was a good idea by India to actually send their second string team to Sri Lanka for this limited over series?
Venny, do you want to come on and discuss the Sri Lanka series?
Man.
You know what? It's sad. I think whenever I see, this is very true, by the way, Australia needing Ricky Ponting mentality. By the way, Justin Langer, there's issues there with Justin Langer, which we'll talk about in another video, but they've had an inquiry and all sorts of anyways. Sri Lanka, it's just sad, man. It's just so sad. Like, we think about your Sangakkara, Jay Warders, like, always go over this, Chaminda Vas, Jayasuriya, like, come on, man. That's a Malinga. Like, so many quality players, but unfortunately, the infrastructure has failed the cricket team. It really has. It's failed the cricket team. Too many teams domestically. I know Aaron, the cricket connoisseur, is really passionate about it. Yeah. We had a discussion about it, and you know he was very, very passionate on it, and he loves Sri Lankan cricket, as do I. And I just think it's a huge shame. It really, really is. And I think looking at it, I'm not. At first, I was like, that's a bit ridiculous, India sending their B team. And then the thing is only ridiculous if India get beaten.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest. Like, and that's why, like, for example, Pakistan, right? It's only ridiculous if England, for example, if they hadn't tested positive and they just sent out that side when they had the other players available and we lost, like we did, I then cannot say, you know what? That's outrageous. How come England have put, like, you just can't, like, I know Arjun Ranatunga has like said it, and he can because he's won the World Cup. He's a former Sri Lankan captain, so fine. But who was it? I think it was, who was it? Was it Jayasuriya or someone said?
No, it was KP. It was Kevin Peterson. He tweeted out Sri Lanka had these great players, and look at
Oh
what
no, it wasn't. It was a former player. Basically, they asked him like, "Oh, do you think the current generation could beat you guys, like back in the day?" And he goes, "No, we would win." And we're 55 or something. Like he basically was saying that they can beat them now, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's actually savage." And I was like, "It's not very, well, that's not very, supportive," but it was funny at the same time. And I just think, unfortunately, they've got some very talented players: Hasaranga, Shanaka, Gunnar Talaka's a good player as well. It's just they just lack cohesiveness.
I think today, though, I have a feeling that today they're going to win. Right now, they're 91 for 1 in the 14th over, needing 136 more runs to win. I think today Sri Lanka might genuinely win. But
also, what's Padikal done not to get picked? You're saying that he's the only one that hasn't got picked. Is that not really hard? Everyone else has had a go. They're like, you can have a go. You can have a go. You can have a go. Oh no, sorry. Stay on the bench. Stay on the bench. Just watch them. Just watch them. You're here just to watch, basically. It's like, what?
I think they've realized, oh, he's good enough, but maybe play him in the T20s, maybe not play him in the ODIs. I think that's maybe the mindset. But yeah, it's shocking as anything, because I didn't expect Padikal. If India's winning the series, I thought Padikal would come in straight in for, Prithvi Shaw or someone like that. Right, Fazan, I think that's everything I wanted to, talk about the cricket going on around the world. I know both of us have to go in about a couple of minutes, but any last words before we end?
I mean, Prithvi Shaw has been great, hasn't he?
Oh, Prithvi Shaw's a genius.
Although someone said, I don't know who it was, but I heard someone said that he's got the best offside looking game ever. And I was like, you're taking it a bit far. Like, he's a very good looking player. But
right now, he's like, people were comparing him to Virender Sehwag, by the way. I was on a discussion call with, in terms of the way that he plays, in terms of the aggression that he's showing. It was that game where he scored 43 of like 20 odd. Yeah. And they were like, he can become the next Sehwag if he keeps playing like this for the next few years. I was like, all right, fair point, fair enough. If he does, that's great for India.
You should be looking to become the next Rohit Sharma, not Virender Sehwag.
Do you know what? A lot of people actually consider Sehwag better than Rohit Sharma, and that is the bombshell I want to end on, Fazan.
Great.
There are a couple of comments coming in. Turning points at Prithvi Shaw with the back foot punch. Yeah, it is good to see, but I think there are players that are much better looking around the world right now. Fazan, thank you. I know it's a collaboration. It's streaming on both our channels. Anyone from Cricket4us 2.0, if you haven't done so already, please check us out and go check out Fazan on QualityShot, and vice versa from QualityShot to Cricket4us 2.0 as well. It would be amazing. Thank you, everyone.
Make sure you like the video on both channels. Subscribe to both channels as well. And thank you for all the comments. I know we didn't get through all of them, but we will definitely next time. I think we addressed most of them anyway. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and sorry we couldn't do it longer. I'm sure next time we'll be able to do it longer.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, see you guys. Thank you everyone for watching. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.